In the spring of 2015, educators from the Carnegie Academy for Science Education joined the District of Columbia Office of the State Superintendent of Education to launch the DC Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics Education, or STEM network. Carnegie interviewed national STEM leaders for their perspectives on and experience with STEM. Carl Reed is the Executive Director for the National Society of Black Engineers. Courtney Robinson is a microbial ecologist at Howard University. Bruce Alberts was president of the National Academy of Sciences and editor-in-chief of Science Magazine. David Evans is the executive director of the National Science Teachers Association. Sue White has been a mathematics teacher, administrator, and consultant in Washington, D.C., and on the national stage.
We can connect with young people. The first thing we have to do is find out what they're interested in. And we could build a whole curriculum around that. They're interested in fireworks, there's a lot of science in fireworks. They're interested in baseball, we could do that as well. But seasoned engineers, seasoned scientists, they can do that and they can bring that life to that young person. But the first step is finding out what they're interested in.
So anytime, I meet a kid that's curious at all about what I do, I tell them about the science that I do and that I get to work with bugs. And have you heard of germs? Well, there are real names for germs. They're bacteria and they're viruses. And I study these things, and that's super cool.
The big picture is that teaching science differently, according to the next generation science standard, as enabling kids to actively learn science and become logical thinkers, logical problem solvers, people who respect scientific judgments and understand how science works. The nature of the scientific enterprises, if understood, will help our children, when they become adults, make the right decisions from their families and for their nations.
A lot of less than happy experiences sometimes when scientists or engineers feel that the best thing they can do is visit classrooms and talk about what they do. Unfortunately, most of us are not all that skilled at conveying our science to people who are not a part of the club, especially to children. And so oftentimes there are a lot of bad experiences I've seen with sort of direct interactions, the occasional visit, the hoped for inspirational talk, which is what lots of folks really want to do. The scientists are very excited about their work almost always, and yet that's not necessarily the best way to go because we tend to be sort of poorly trained in how to communicate.
Not the scientists to go in the classroom and start lecturing. That's the worst thing to do. First of all, we want active learning, and we don't want them to lecture. And when you do that, of course, you overwhelm the teacher in the class with all these complicated things that the teacher doesn't understand, the students don't understand, and you leave the teacher at the end, after you've left these questions that the kids will ask that he or she can't answer.
We've just got to insist that science be taught early, pre-K, I believe, at pre-K level on.
So getting young people early, not only competent in mathematics, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, but confident in math so that they can enjoy it. No one could do that better than those who practice because they can bring the reality, the relevance of that.
I coordinate, I should say, a course that's funded by the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, and we start students in genuine research as freshmen. And so, it's hugely important for, STEM educators. So if you have high school students that are going into college, make sure that they know to ask about research opportunities. If you have a curious high school student or middle school student, get them involved with research. Don't be afraid to go to, that university professor down the block, because we love talking about our research, okay? We love having students come into our laboratories and learn what we think is like the coolest thing ever.
Our students must have access to professionals who are really on the ground, to really understand what the field involves. See, often our teachers don't even know what these STEM careers look like. So it's just imperative that our STEM professionals get involved with schools.
One of the real challenges is many kids don't know what the opportunities are. They don't know what the career paths are. They don't know that studying science doesn't mean you're going to wear a white lab jacket and spend your time in a laboratory. That's sort of the stereotype and what people think of, and that's just plain not true. And so, so having personal experience and personal contact in a kind of wide way, having an opportunity to tell the stories that make you excited, I think is a really powerful way for people to be involved.
Preparation for going in a classroom is to actually read what experts say about how to do it. The UCSF has, for 30 years, had a science education partnership. On their website, you'll find instructions that, they always pre-brief scientists before they allow them going into a classroom. You know, I think it's great for scientists to go and talk about what they do in their life, how they became a scientist, and not just talk at kids, but have them ask questions.
I just insist that whenever someone comes to the school, that let me see what you want to do, and then let's rearrange it so that it's interesting. When we go into elementary and junior, we forget kids like to move around. And so there's so many ways that we can engage kids in an active sort of way versus sitting and listening.
The trick is engagement, you know, and if games are a method for providing for engagement, then I'm sure they'll be successful. The next generation science standards are heavily driven by engagement, you know, prompting kids to ask their own questions, you know, realize that the process of science is mostly about asking the question, and that the first 7 questions you ask it won't be that you don't get the answer, it's that you'll find out they're not even the right questions to ask. And so, you know, that's a lot like exploring a game space when you realize that the path you've chosen that you're convinced will be the one that will get you there, in fact, you know, has you being consumed by a fire-breathing dragon.
We've got to get into the space where kids live and study and play and really show that connection. We've got to let kids know that these video games and puzzles really are mathematical and science-based. And so I think when we begin to do that kind of thing with schools and the communities around us, it'll make a difference.
Realizing that a once and done kind of approach is not going to be sufficient. I mean, there are certainly people who are inspirational speakers, and, you know, you can have a meeting or a conference or an event and have an inspirational speaker, and people will say, gosh, that was fabulous, and they're great and charged up for an hour or maybe even a week. But in terms of really helping with science education and helping with science literacy, I think we need to look for programs that have got continuity. So things that go on. It might be volunteering at a local makerspace. Libraries, for example, are beginning to sort of develop makerspaces where kids can come in a variety of ages, and volunteering there, you know, being available to answer questions, being available to pose questions.
The volunteering, but not the volunteering for the moment, but the volunteering over the long haul. You know, the greatest thing in the world is to be able to model and influence someone else's life with what you do. I think that's just a wonderful feeling.